r/askreddit. Serious people who want/inherited a lot of money. What are your horror stories from people begging for your money? I'm dealing with this crap right now. My great aunt and godmother was a lesbian. Her partner, my auntie Kitty, had been with her since the 1950s. When my godmother moved to New York, Auntie Kitty was disowned by her family when it came out she was with a woman. My godmother died when I was 12 and left my auntie Kitty everything in her will, which made things strained with my dad's family, though my dad and one of his brothers still talked to her. I moved to New York at 18 for school, and, knowing no one else in the city, we became close. She was thrilled that I wanted to have a relationship with her and spend time with her, and didn't hesitate to think of her as my aunt, even though she technically wasn't. She was legit the greatest. And we spent holidays together, and she would come to things I worked on, and I knew all her friends and she knew mine. I basically spent a decade with her, being like another grandmother to me. She died a few months ago, and it sucks. I miss her a lot, to put it lightly, but she was in her 90s and lived a long life. Thing was, she left everything to me. Now, I knew she had money. It was hard to miss, but I didn't know how much money she had. I ended up with a decent sized amount of cash and investments, a brownstone in the city, and a place in on the beach in the Carolinas. Her family came out of the woodwork when she died, sniffing around for money and demanding I give them the beach house, or cash, or whatever. Will states explicitly that they are not to receive anything from her estate, and it's all to go to me. But they are threatening to sue since they are sure she wanted to give them something, even though she hadn't talked to any of them in over half a century, and in some cases, had never met them. On the opposite side of things, my dad's sisters and brothers are pissed they didn't get anything, because they'd occasionally sent her a Christmas card. None of them view it as fair that I was given everything when they were given nothing. None of them showed up to her funeral. None of them had properly seen her or talked to her in years except my dad. One of my aunts has gone so far as harassing my boyfriend, since he's apparently only in it for the money, despite the fact that he had a better relationship with her than she did and had to help me plan her funeral. It's basically a crap show, and I hate it. My grandmother had an education fund made for me and put money in it every month. I was pretty young and my mom was poor and wanted to use that money to buy pot and cigarettes and other stuff. She kept bugging me and bribing me with stuff. I told my grandmother, who made sure my mom couldn't access the account. I wish my grandparents would have done that. My dad gained control of my college fund when my grandpa died. Instead of saving it for when I went to college, he used to live off of, so he wouldn't have to work. When it came time for me to apply for college, there was $100 left in the account that started with about $30,000. It's something I never forgave him for. I do estate valuations for various attorneys and such, just as a sideline and for fun. Got a call to do one. There were two brothers, etc. The way I do it, you pay me up front, usually about $500 for small stuff, and I come in, make baseline valuations of personal property, not real estate, and give estimates based upon what the goods would probably realize at auction. Usually the big stuff is liquidated and divided monetarily, so I don't fool with that. Went in with my usual blather about, if you people have one uncivil word, I will walk, and your money will be forfeit speech. And proceeded to do around the grounds listing/evil with one of my people. They were following us around, smiling and making small talk. One of them had a wife, the other had a girlfriend. They were all very amicable. When we got done, they asked if I would look and see if their division of property was fair, as they had done it prior to our arrival. They indicated that Salome was coming the next day to pick up everything else. I looked at their lists, and they were each for things that the other didn't want, and the lists were equal to within exactly $10 of my estimates. The brother who had the $10 advantage got out his wallet and gave his brother two $5 bills. The other brother said, I owe you $5 from lunch last week, and he gave one back. Then they told me that it was worth $500 to know that they were even and it wouldn't mess up their relationship. They called me about 2 weeks later, asking if I had cashed their check, as they were closing out the estate. I had torn it up and told them so. They sent the money to the Wind River Tribal Youth Program. Haven't thought about that in years. Thanks, Reddit. I won around £5,000 on a football, soccer, accumulator a few years ago. Not a lot really, but a lot for a 23-year-old. To cut a long story short, because I didn't pay off my father's credit card debt with it, he fell out with me and pretty much tried to ruin my life. He told my then partner I had a gambling problem. I didn't, unless spending £5 a week on football constitutes a problem. Got my mother to call my work to tell them I had a problem, which resulted in work getting a stupid counselor in to talk to me, and basically preyed on my family's love for me by making them all make me feel horrendously guilty for ever placing a bet in the first place. It all reached a head when I came home to my partner in tears and my mother and father sat comforting her on the sofa, proceeding to tell me if she didn't know if she could trust me, and why couldn't I just admit how long I'd been gambling for. I physically removed my father from my house that night and told him to never darken my doorstep again. All over 5 grand. Parents are sometimes toxic and an awful influence on your life. I cut him out because of it, which sadly has meant my relationship with my mother has taken a hit, but it was honestly the best thing I ever did. Don't be afraid of doing so if they add nothing but negativity to your life. But it was all okay for him to have credit card debt that he couldn't pay. What a roaster. I'll share my current nightmare that started right before my mom died. My mother was an alcoholic who ended up dying of liver failure last May. After my mom died, we opened the estate with the state of PA to begin the process of going through her finances and transferring the deed from her house to me. As soon as my info was registered with the state, every realtor came out of the woodwork to harass me about selling her property. I got it, phone calls, letters. People showed up and wouldn't leave. We had to call the police multiple times on one realtor. I luckily had a great estate lawyer who would hit the people with C&Ds and follow up with the police when they continued to show up. My mom had a townhome in a very desirable neighborhood. It's an easy sale for any realtor, but I was still surprised on the sheer number of realtors who harassed us about it. We still have 2 realtors who stop by our house every once in a while. Thank leave a business card. I have a sign stating that we are not selling taped to our door, like vultures on a carcass. Disgusting. When I was diagnosed with cancer, my job took up a collection for me. They were very generous, and it grew to a fair amount of money, which we used throughout my treatment, so that we didn't worry about bills and whatnot. My sister found out about the money and began to ask for money, never once offering help, but always having a sob story about why she needed the cash. When lied and said the money was gone, she stopped calling altogether. Oh, and when I was a toddler, my mom passed in a car accident. I had bonds given to me from family friends to help me later in life. My aunt who adopted me cashed all the bonds before I even finished elementary school, leaving me with nothing. My mom and dad won big once at a casino around 25 years back. One of those once in a lifetime medium level jackpots. Around 10,000. Most of the money went into bills and a few family fun things over the course of a summer. However, during that time my aunt and a few of my mother's relatives kept bullying her for cash. Her relatives kept demanding she owed them some of the cash. Because the casino trip was with them, they invited my folks along and drove them. So by their logic they were obliged to part of the winnings. My aunt on the other hand just kept begging so she could help out with her kids' debts. They are very spoiled kids, and over the years, have run themselves into the ground financially, and every time their mother, my aunt, digs them out, my folks never gave in, even though my mother's relatives threatened to sue, which they didn't, and my aunt eventually just moved on. After this, no one on my mother's side would go with my folks without making clear that, if they won, they would get some of the money. Needless to say, my parents never went with them again, and for a time went on their own. I was young at the time and used to not having much growing up because we were very poor. This cash really did us a service, but the things that stand out to me the most are all the abusive calls my mother and father got about this money, and how I found out later on that these people beyond my aunt all made near 6-figure incomes. They didn't need the money, they just wanted it. Last December I got money that I didn't truly earn. Rest of my family is okay with it and congratulates me every chance they get. My mother likes bragging that her son is rich because he's so smart, even though what I did was pure luck. It's all fun. Except for my brother. He keeps trying to rope me into new real estate and investment deals. Says that this is a great property and keeps pressuring me to buy. Tries to manipulate me emotionally and belittles my intelligence for not taking it. The deals aren't bad. They're pretty good, and any normal person probably would take an interest. But the stupid part is that my brother is a lawyer who still has more assets than I do. But he isn't willing to risk his own money. He wants me to pay for the deals, and he gets to keep the profits. Basically I'm just another source of loan money to him. Even worse is that he expects me not to charge interest or take a share of the profits because we're family. Sure, he says the properties will appreciate in value and I believe him. But I also see through the bullshit when he says going to cut me a fair deal in future. Even though he's a lawyer, I can't even trust anything he puts down in writing, since I'm certain there is some clause he can twist to get me. TLDR. Having money attracts slime balls and con artists, especially if they're from your own family. Friend of mine didn't even win any lottery. She finally got approved for disability benefits after years of jumping through bureaucratic hoops. Almost immediately, her family descended like vultures, demanding money for this or that. They didn't believe her that benefits in this case basically means the bare minimum necessities to not die of starvation. They thought she was sitting on a nest egg of thousands and started screaming at her and calling her a liar when she said she was actually broke after one trip to the grocery store. First of all, who the hell screams at a disabled person demanding money? Second, why the hell do they think she owes them a single dime, even if she was rich, when they can't even give her a ride to the doctor without demanding gas money? I told her to tell them all to go themselves with a fire hydrant, but she's too nice. That probably answers the questions above. My parents divorced when I was 2. I'm now 18, and until about 3 years ago I would spend summers and every other holiday with my dad. Most of that time was also spent with his parents, my grandparents. My mom remarried when I was 6 to my stepdad, who is like my actual dad to me, since my biological father is opposed and was abusive. They had my half-sister a year later who is now 12. I refer to her as my sister, and introduced my stepdad as just dad. My grandparents on my biological father's side are very old, and honestly probably won't be around for much longer. I haven't seen them in 3 years, and have very limited phone calls with them, always on my mom's phone with her sitting next to me. They do not know this for certain, but have guessed over the years. Anyways, after I got off the phone with them the other day for one of our air talks, the topic of inheritance came up. My grandparents are very well off, and I most likely will get quite a bit of money. I mentioned I will save it for a future house and to help with education costs, since my parents will not be giving me any aid for schooling fees. That, turns out, was the wrong thing to say, because my parents immediately started demanding that I split half of it with my sister. I didn't refuse, because I know better, and I was honestly just shocked at their reaction. I didn't really say anything. Their logic is that every time I had to go away to visit them, that my sister had to go without having her big sister, and that she had faced a lot of difficulties with the situation. They also said it isn't fair that I would be getting all that money and she wouldn't have anything. I love my sister. If she needs help paying for college or rent, when she is older I will give it to her, no questions asked. I would have given some of the money, maybe not half and maybe not just deposited in a bank account. But she would get anything she needed. What I'm angry about is being told what to do with my money, as if they've been counting on this for a while, and I'm tempted to bring it up again to sort that out. TLDR, I'm getting a big inheritance, and have been told by my parents that I have to split it with my half-sister. Am I the idiot for not wanting to? Edited to fix some typos. Edited again to clarify. The money I will give my sister will be set aside to be specifically used for education or expenses she has while in college. I would not be giving her a huge sum. Also, I have no idea how much of my grandparents' assets are tied up in trusts, but seeing as they are multimillionaires it is highly probable. Throwaway account because duh. Background: my family has never been great with money. I and my sister were always provided for. As a kid, I remember we had nice things. I thought our way of life was normal. One night, I find my mom sobbing at the kitchen sink. She had broken the carafe for the coffee maker. She was upset because we couldn't afford a new coffee maker. A teenage boy was consoling his mom over a $10 expense. Fast forward and I've finished college. At this point, everything is great. M&D pay off some loans. A trust fund from my grandparents pays some more. And I'm left with a little to pay off myself. My uncle inherited a chunk of money from my grandparents when they passed, as did my mom. Mom gave pretty much all of it to my dad to help him finance his business, which ended up not working out. At this point, my parents are talking about how they are out of money. My mom has come to me, my sister, and my wife saying that she is not sure she can stay with dad with what is happening. 80% of what she inherited from grandma is gone. She has nowhere to go. She loves my dad. It's devastating. None of us are able to help. About this time, my parents start talking with me about my uncle. He has an estate valued over $2 million. Apparently my uncle wanted my mom to get 50% and me and my sister 25% each. I don't know what to say. How do we even have this conversation? My uncle is still alive and struggling. Fast forward another 3 years and my uncle is gone. I got the call at 5 AM. My wife held me as I wept in our bathroom, half ready for work. I didn't get a call back from anyone in my family until 9:30 that morning. Begin the 1-year-long estate process. I find out that the will is written to distribute the assets in thirds. M&D ask me to commit to giving them some of my share in order to achieve the originally intended 75-25-25. I avoid the question, instead focusing on how to make sure we ensure that our family is secure and not one that waits for the next big break to bail us out. Everyone agrees. I never press the issue of an actual percentage. Time comes, and mom and dad talk to seize and take a chunk of her money that would make the distribution equal to what they have told us they expect. They have not spoken to me yet. Then the call comes. We need you to wire us $325K. I freeze. They explain their costs of retirement, their budget, and how they'll finally be able to leave me and my sister an inheritance with this money. Their budget is based on taking 2 vacations a year. They live as a couple in a large home that they intend to pay off. This is not what I expected. I say no. After many discussions and clinical emails, I finally said I'm giving them nothing. My sister asked for her money to be returned. She got it. Mom and dad have told us that we've stolen from them. I feel like I'm losing my parents. Anything I do now would just be buying a relationship with them, and that's not something I can get right with. Am I the idiot? Edit. I cannot describe the emotions I've felt writing this, and I've felt even more reading all of the replies. You all have no idea how close you have come to hitting home on specific details. Thank you, Redditors. I owe you a great debt.